各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看 JxJ 论坛，我是 Jimmy 马健，与我们的好朋友 Jim Noteware 为我们一起讨论这个礼拜的时事。Jim,
Hello, Jimmy.
first off, I hope the house is fixed. I hope everything went well, and I want to wish you a safe travels for your Italy trip coming up. In case we forget.
Yep. Thank you.
It's hard to air travel is nuts, getting family together, but it's worth it. That's the only thing we cannot replace is experiences with our loved ones is invaluable.
Right. And so we want to get it while it's good. Even though I'm celebrating my 70th birthday, I'm perfectly healthy and want to go on forever, but it may not last. Who knows? So my wife says we're in the business of accumulating experiences. Because that's what you remember. And that's what other people remember about you. They don't remember how fancy a car you had. And even if you had a fancy car, it won't last. So
it doesn't. But as you know, I think for a lot of people when they're younger, we didn't know any better. Material things does for some people motivates you or if it brings value to your life, or if you enjoy certain things, I get it. But if you place everything based on a dollar amount of what you own and what you drive, look, I used to love cars. I had a Maserati. I drove good cars. I love watches and travel. But now I realize it's traveling. It's going to new places with people I love, my children, my parents, people I care about, my friends, and experience things, just having good food or seeing new things. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. Agree totally.
So I'm very happy for you, and I wish I could take them. I mean, it's been crazy. This I feel like this is only the end of June, but it felt like summer started 3 months ago, and this last month has been so eventful already.
In a way, it did because our heat wave brought summer early.
It did. So. This is the hottest summer, driest we've had in Houston in I don't know how long, but there's some relief coming. Jim, every week we crave. And I forget how the goal, our purpose, the purpose of the show. We all have our own purpose in life, but the show, we're supposed to educate. We're supposed to maybe not educate. We're supposed to be able to share our experiences, discuss the issues. But the last maybe year is really bad. Every time there's headlines, we see these crazy headlines or social media, these things that really upsets people. I mean, you look at you turn on any website, any news story right now, Roe versus Wade, expansion of gun rights. A lot of these are extreme views, and it doesn't represent what the majority of Christians think, or church, or even the Republican Party. And same way it goes for the other side. You mentioned it earlier. Where do we go from here? And
everybody loves to pick on the media, me included. I think a couple of things are going on there in terms of what the public narrative is. The first one is we have to remember that the media are a business, and the way they market that business is to stir controversy. And so what they love to do is to get people riled up. When I used to write for the Houston Business Journal, my publisher and I would say, how do you get public engagement? You get it through public enragement. And what you do is you have to make people unhappy, frightened, angry, all of those kinds of emotions, and then they pay attention. That's number one. Number two, the media really pay the public an insult, thinking that they can only handle one or two or three major stories at a time. Right now, those major stories are inflation, and all the derivatives from that, interest rates, etc. The other one is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and now the media seem obsessed with the Roe versus Wade decision. And if you've noticed, the pandemic is taking a back seat. Many other related issues are also taking a back seat. So they think we can only deal with three things at a time. And what happens is they deal with great big complex issues with simple sound bites rather than getting into a lot of the challenging subheads. Maybe I should add the media are paying us a short-term compliment because the fourth item is the January 6th hearings. But that's an issue that I think has been created by the media and by many in the Democratic Party to keep it churning, to keep the controversy regarding Donald Trump continuing to churn. Are they doing some useful things? Yes, they are. I'll grant that. I grant that I have learned some things. But I'd much rather people talk about other things like food shortages around the world, other things like here locally, we're doing a huge damage to our own environment by drilling down our water table. Not only are we exhausting the simplest form of water source, but we are creating collapsing soils and collapsing buildings. It's a major issue that gets no play because now we're getting to the third item. The media is lazy. They read press releases from one of the political parties or political offices, or they grab a headline like crime and look into all of that. And again, get people enraged about crime, etc. But if there's nothing else going on, they'll do what's called, if it bleeds, it leads, and get people riled out about crime and public safety and danger, etc., etc. So I would like to see the media become much more analytic, much more consistent in what they do, and lower the temperature. When it comes, for instance, to gun violence, pay attention to the huge numbers of people that are actually getting killed all day and all night, every day and every night in most major cities around the country. So not to say the mass shootings aren't important. They definitely are. But the numbers pale in comparison to the underlying crime epidemic that is going on. And many of those difficulties are solvable. They're reasonably solvable by just paying attention to and enforcing the existing laws that we already have. But that takes a lot of, in the media business, they call it shoe leather, to dig deep, et cetera, et cetera. So I think what's happening is we're all consumers, and we're consumers of food, we're consumers of clothing, we're consumers of housing, but we're also consumers of news for one reason or another. And so we allow ourselves to get taken by all of this. And it's not just the big media, the established newspapers, the established magazines, the established television and radio stations. Now we have a whole new universe of social media news. We have a whole new universe of other spokespeople, industry, academia, etc. Most everyone is in the news and information business now for one reason or another. So I think we just have to be very, very careful about the way we spend our time looking at things, disciplining ourselves on which sources to rely upon, etc., and to do our own discipline by sharing our thoughts, not just with the people we agree with, that's easy, but challenge ourselves to listen to other voices that may have an interesting perspective and may teach us something anew. So as frustrating as the situation is now, and I think it's getting more frustrating, and it probably will continue to get more so, I do think it's think it's something that we can and should live with, and do our best as individuals to try to dampen down the otherwise outrage and bad mood that a lot of the country is in.
Because it's easier to use hate and anger and rile up people and get more clicks than using, logic and explaining and working together with people, right? Compromises is very hard now.
Right.
Can we go back to what you mentioned earlier about media?
Sure.
I grew up in the age when I was coming of age, the explosion of cable.
Mm-hmm.
But you remember the days when it was just the big three: ABC, CBS, NBC. The argument was that back then was only three big networks, which is just not just here, but every country is, the few big ones. Well,
Right.
here specifically here in the States, the big three, the complaint was that, there's only three and limited news and, all very similar. But the news that was reported to them they were selected, and they were important.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not hyperbole or hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
Too much information can always be a bad thing too, because not everyone is educated or can make logical choices. I know a lot of that's true. I know actually that's not true. I know a lot of educated and logical people that are so riled up, whether they're far right or far left, they're just completely unreasonable now. And with this environment, I'm in so many different texts and group chats and with friends of all walks of life and different political spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like people that are, how do I say this without offending anyone? Let's say people that have kids, have a family, that are trying to make it. It's just hard. Raising kids are hard, and trying to make it, trying to teach them to be kind and good, go to church. I think a lot of us just don't have the energy to tell people or explain to them, hey, I don't agree with you, and what I think what you say is not true. We just don't have the energy because it's so far-fetched out there. So what happens is that these folks they believe the ones that are they're aggressive, the ones that they're conspiracy theories, they start thinking that, hey, these people are all quiet, the silent majority, so I must be right. They're all agreeing with me. No one's correcting me. I'll keep going. So it becomes a cycle. But the fact is, most of us, me and you, we're not going to sit there and argue or educate you or teach you. That's not my responsibility. But then they just keep going. It's just like a bully at school. You don't stop the bully just keeps on bullying until what? I don't know. And yeah, Jim, I don't know what's going on in California, New York right now. I have family there right now in San Fran and in New York. And you look at the states that are going to ban abortion is divided by party line, and just East Coast, West Coast, the cities are, most major cities, metropolitan areas are blue now. The rural areas are red. And now I could see now the argument, being too progressive. I understand now that you got to have a balance, Jim. There has to be a balance. And the good days, I used to think my elders, when they talk about the good old days, well, I'm at the age now where I understand what the good old days mean. I didn't understand it before because it was simpler times, absolutely simpler times.
Yep. And I think life is getting much more complex, just the sheer aspect of living. I mean, think about how complex dealing with paying your taxes has become. Think of how complex buying insurance has become. Health insurance is beyond most anybody's ability to understand it, but even life insurance, even property and casualty insurance, all of these things, even understanding what's going on with your bank accounts and savings and all the different investment choices people have. Now some of that should be becoming easier because of the benefits of technology, but that doesn't seem to be helping either. No. So anyway, you've got to run faster just to stay in place. It seems like an Alice in Wonderland world. And as that happens, more and more and more of a greater and greater percentage of our population becoming disenfranchised. They simply can't keep up or choose not to keep up. They choose to check out. And that's a dangerous conclusion, but it happens.
Because, like I said, the silent majority, the majority of people just want to have a good life, have a good job, pay less taxes, raise their kids. I mean, majority have the same goals. We're all the same, really, deep down, but get so riled up into business that we have no business into. A woman's body has. My religion shouldn't be. I don't force it on anyone, but I hope no one forces it on me. Same thing. It shouldn't be. Church and state should not mix. A human being's basic rights. If you apply to gun rights, applying to not letting some vaccine in your body, they should apply to this too. But then once again, I have to stop pushing it on other people too. I see it now. I see that it is really hard. We have to maintain this moral ambiguity. How do I say this? This moral. It's hard. It's hard, Jim. And every day, because our last episode we talked about electricity prices, inflation, and we know protests is starting on both coasts, crime rate, and we know a recession is coming. Mm-hmm. We talked about how it would affect our kids and our grandkids. Mm-hmm. For them to have to grow up, because we went through how could I say a golden age from the 80s to 2020? I mean, it was 40 years of nonstop innovation, and the stock market indexes just goes up year after year, right? We had some pullbacks, even in 2001 or 2009. It was nothing like the 70s, the oil embargo, and what we're about to see. And the whole world, if you look at the big picture, humanity as a whole, civilization as a whole, we're more advanced than at any point in our human history, medically, global wealth, standard of living, clean water. Basically, yes, there's a lot to work on, but at no point has it been this much with this many human beings on Earth. And yet, how do we continue that? How do we go back to the nuclear, the core family values? For the longest time, the core family is a father, a mother, children, and a community that includes the place of worship. The community includes your law enforcement officers. They're there to serve and protect. There's no more. How do we go back to that without enforcing one's religious views or civil rights or how do we go back to the fundamentals of just human nature, of being kind, of wanting to have a home, a community?
Well, I'm a little bit more optimistic because I just think human nature is the same, and people have innate values that are similar all across the world, across different ethnic groups, cultural groups, religious groups, etc. They differ a little bit between the form of government and some social norms, etc. But by and large, they're the same. And I think it's the leaders that kind of jockey for position and try to change things at the extreme. But I think in the main, most people, at least speaking for people across the United States, but even around the world, have a pretty central ballast about what's good and keep a good balance on things. But having said that, the world is getting more complex, and people are having more and more uncertainties and dilemmas thrown at them, and with that is fracturing too. So back to one of the things you said a moment ago about in the old days with the big three, let's say national networks, and they had independent. The Walter Cronkites of the world giving, a singular voice to news reporting. I'm glad that we don't have those. In other words, I'm glad we are where we are today as opposed to where that was. Because even though that technique bred a lot of unity throughout the country because people were hearing the same message or messages all the time, we really didn't know anything about what they chose not to tell us. And there were a lot of things around us that were going on that for one reason or another, the main media did not deem newsworthy. And for all its complexity, I'd rather have a choice. I'd rather have access to a whole lot of things, including what you call too much information, and then sort it out. And that means you have to rely on yourself for discipline, and it means you have to rely on people closest to you, which then says you better be really careful about who you associate with, etc. So it's a heightened order of discipline, but in a larger way, I think it's a healthier one. And part of the reason that I think society and the economy has progressed the way that you mentioned it a few minutes ago is because of all of those choices. Children have the ability to grow up and have careers today that no one could have imagined a generation or two ago. And so,
no, I see what you mean. Yes, there's technology is a boom. You have to pick and choose though, because it makes so many more convenience in life, connect people, and evens out the wealth divide. Kids can learn and see things, but in the same way. So this is an argument we have on a lot of these developed countries. Let's use China as an example, as our viewers are Chinese. There's an argument that says that yes, China is developed economically from a third world country essentially, with this beautiful cities, technology, and average GDP, but the soul of a nation, the soul of your people is based on what? You don't have to have a national religion, but without this caring for your fellow human being, without empathy, humanity is not going to continue. When it's just grabbing wealth and allocates and only watching out for whether it's your family or your race or whatever it is, it cannot continue that way. I'm very optimistic, actually. I mean, I'm worried about the financial situation that will come up soon. Yeah. The suffering of a lot of our fellow friends. Jim, look, I told you we have summer vacation Bible school. They call it VBS, essentially summer school at church. Yeah. Every week is different church. Every year we'll go through the churches we usually attend, or kids went to preschool at a certain church. Mm-hmm. And I see that Sugar Land, how lucky we are. I thank the Lord. I don't know if I mentioned it to you when I came back from this 2-3 trips to New York the last month, and then from LA 6 months ago. Before, when we travel to Europe, Asia, we'll always say, oh, God, Houston, we're coming back to this heat, to the traffic. But this time, I'm really appreciative. We have low cost of living. We have our friends and family here. And when I'm at church or I'm at school picking my kids up, we're in a bubble. We're in Sugar Land. We have every race, every age. We have everybody and everyone's kind, and utopia, and I hope everyone can see it. We're appreciative. I think just be more appreciative of everything. And what's appreciative is that when you travel too, right? No matter how beautiful Lake Como is, or how beautiful Italy is, or Bali, or home is home, you cannot.
That's all true. That's all true. And one of the things we benefit from here in the United States is what they call the gate theory. The gate opens inward. Most people in the world want to come here. There are a few people here that leave, but very, very few.
The people that say that have no idea what they're saying. So
Right.
They didn't complain. They didn't complain for everything anyway. So
yeah, well, some people will complain no matter what. And I think that group of people is growing, unfortunately. Yeah. We just have to tune it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, I won't see you now for 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
So by then, maybe the world will change yet once again. And maybe we will have a brand new media issue that kicks the things we now know off the front page.
Jim,
don't know.
You know what? You're right. It will be. But, I want to not take things out of context. Remember, I was telling you earlier that, in the big picture, the history, everything, we are at a golden age still. But the last few years, or let's just say starting from 2022, these are, we feel like, oh God, the news are so bad. It is bad. We didn't make it up. Right. We haven't had a full-scale war like Ukraine for 20 years. We haven't had a once-in-a-generation pandemic, once in a century. We haven't had this huge political divide. And then now we have a law that's 50 years in the making, Roe versus Wade being overturned. We have Uvalde shooting and gun. I mean, these are big things that are stressful. But take a step back, be even killed, and keep going, as you have done for half a century that you've been just plugging along. You started working at a very young age, right? So I know you had a good work ethic. You probably more than that because you were on the front. I'm taping, baby. Please, baby. No, go ask your brother. No, stop. I'm sorry, sir. The door's locked. How did you get in? Go.
That's the younger generation looking for their place at our table.
They are. I appreciate you. Enjoy your time with your grandchildren and your family. Stay safe out there, please.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
I'll check in with you in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.